Okay. So tonight we're going to talk all things sugar and sweets. And as a reminder, here at Healthy Steps or at GC Clinic, we use Healthy Steps Nutrition. As our This is something that we use to help support our nutrition clients because we believe something as fundamental as nutrition shouldn't be complicated. And we use a focus, habit-based approach that helps us reach our goals one step at a time. So let's dive in. Now, the first question I want to ask you all is, do we need sugar in our diet? So put that in the comment section what your answer is, because I want to see what you guys feel about this. Do we need it in our diet or not? Yes. Tanya says yes. Let's see if anyone else answers. So glad it exists. So, yes, we need sugar. Sugar is, and glucose, so sugar breaks down to glucose, is our primary source of fuel. So we need it. We just tend to get a lot of it in the wrong forms and we overeat it. So we're going to talk more about those forms, not the whole food forms, not that kind of the where we get our energy from, but more of the problem aspect of sugar and added sugar and all of that. So, many studies show that a high consumption of sugar is associated with inflammation and many chronic diseases. Some diseases that are directly linked to sugar consumption include diabetes, hypertension, and heart disease. And obesity is also strongly correlated with sugar consumption and can account for at least 13 types of cancers, including breast, liver, and colon cancer. And fun fact, did you know that the average American eats or drinks over 500 calories of sugar in a day? That's about 36 teaspoons. So when you think about that, it's astonishing, and a lot of us don't even know that we're doing it. Um, if you add this up to a year, Americans are consuming over 150 pounds of sugar, which is wild. Like if you really think about that in a year, 150 pounds purely from sugar. According to the USDA, in 1822, the average American ate in 5 days the amount of sugar found in one of today's 12-ounce sodas. So we used to eat such a small amount that just a 12-ounce soda would be the amount that we would consume in 5 days. Now we're eating that much every 7 hours. And this makes sense why the prevalence of obesity in 2017 and 2018 was 42.4% for adults and 19.3% in children and adolescents. And that's from 2017 to 2018. So I'm sure those numbers have gone up from there. And it's clear why we are still seeing these numbers increase. The risk factor associated with high consumption of sugar might have shocked you. Or maybe just the amount that we consume made your jaw drop. And you might be wondering, how in the world are we consuming this much? So I want you to think about the last time that you had a sweet treat that turned into a few more innocent handfuls, or that one cookie turned into a whole sleeve. We've all been there. In fact, many of my nutrition clients have struggled to navigate sugar in their life in a mindful way. There becomes a negative feedback loop that restricting sweet foods and just having one or feeling guilty, and then we lead to over consuming or going overboard or binge eating. So we've all been there, but why do we struggle to stay so mindful? Have you ever heard that sugar is addictive? Addiction is a craving for a specific substance that involves continuous use, which becomes hazardous to your well being, according to the FDA. So let's put this into terms. A study that took place in the University of Minnesota found that sugary foods caused a similar effect on the brain chemicals when compared to those of drugs. This is where the phrase sugar is more addicting than cocaine stems from. So now we know how much the average person is consuming, why it's so easy for us to consume that amount when it's considered addictive, and the negative effects that it has on our health. So how much are we actually supposed to be consuming per day? Does anyone know what the AHA recommends per day that we consume of added sugar? Not total sugar, but added sugar. Zero grams, okay? 25 grams or less. So the AHA recommends that we consume no more than 24 grams of sugar for women and 36 grams of sugar for men per day, which is about 6 to 9 teaspoons of sugar, respectively. And we'll get into why this number is really hard to be zero in a little bit. But when we think about this and what we said previously, this means that the average American consumes nearly 6 times the recommended limit for sugar in a given day. But we aren't likely to just be sitting around eating these like little sugar cubes. So, how are we getting all this added sugar in? Where is it coming from? Sugar can be sneaky sometimes, and it can hide in different types of foods. So, what I want to do before we get into some of the top 3 common foods with hidden sugar, I want you guys to let me know, where do you think we're consuming this added sugar from? What would be some of your top guesses that has the sneaky sugar? Processed foods, definitely. Processed foods, potato chips, drinks and snacks, definitely. So the first one we're going to talk about is something that is a staple in so many people's diets, kids' diets specifically, is convenience breakfast foods. So we're thinking oatmeal packets, Pop-Tarts, yogurts, cereal. Let's break it down. So a single serving of oatmeal, of not all oatmeal packets, I should preface, but of if you were to just go grab like a standard maple and brown sugar oatmeal packet off the shelf, contains 11 to 15 grams of added sugar per packet. And sugar is normally like the second ingredient in there. If you look at Pop-Tarts, 2 pastries contain around 30 grams of sugar, 29 grams of which is added. So, not just natural sugar that's found in the milk or whatever is incorporated in the baking, but added sugar. And cereal, Trix cotton candy, or I'm sorry, not cereal, we just talked, but yogurt. A lot of people think yogurt's this health food, which it is, and it can be wonderful for you. But when you get the flavored ones, you have to be really, really careful. The Trix cotton candy yogurt, for example, is 14 grams of sugar per serving, and those are just those little cups. And then popular breakfast cereals can have up to 10 grams of added sugar per third, or like 3/4 of a cup. So it's something that we really, really need to be mindful of, especially starting our day off. We start our day with 15 grams of added sugar. We're not really putting ourselves up for the best success throughout the rest of the day. Now, you guys mentioned some snacks. So, easy grab and go snacks are super popular for added sugar. So, think about pantry foods, trail mix, granola bars, packaged pastries, even protein bars. Trail mix, that is often marketed as a heart healthy snack, can contain up to 10 grams of added sugar. Packaged pastries like the little Debbie Swiss rolls have about 27 grams of sugar, so your whole day wiped out in one little pastry. Um, a typical granola bar or a Nutri-Grain cereal bar can have up to 12 grams of sugar. And those Quaker Chewy chocolate dipped granola bars that we give to a lot of kids has 13 grams of sugar in it. And you're thinking 25 grams for a adult and 36 grams for an adult male. So adult female, 25 grams, adult male, 36 grams. Kids need far less, and we're giving them 12 grams in one little bar. So lastly, in the category of grab and goes of protein bars, a lot of people, these are glorified candy bars. Not all protein bars are as healthy as you think. Some have 19 grams of sugar, which is actually more than a Krispy Kreme donut. So really, really, really being mindful of what we're actually buying when we're grabbing these snacks, because there are good options. I don't want you to think, oh, I can't have any of these things. There's fantastic protein bars out there. There's fantastic ways to make grab and go snacks. We just have to be mindful of what we're putting into them. Lastly, Cheyenne mentioned drinks, beverages. Beverages have been a big topic of conversation in discussing the obesity epidemic. A few shocking stats. So, like the Nesquik fat-free chocolate milk, 54 grams of sugar. Minute Maid lemonade has 29 grams of sugar. Snapple iced tea, 46 to 50 grams of sugar, depending on the flavor. A 12-ounce Coke has 39 grams of sugar. And lastly, like flavored creamers for our coffee can have 6 grams of sugar per tablespoon, which adds up. If you're just pouring it in and you're not measuring it out, that can add up really quickly, especially if you're having several cups throughout the day. So beverages, juice, these things can have a lot of impact on our total sugar intake throughout the day, especially if you're drinking coffee with sugar, with a cereal that's sugar rich, and then you're having a snack as a granola bar. We've already maxed out. And three simple things that we might be doing on a regular basis is really causing us harm down the road. So let's take a moment to breathe, because that's a lot to process, and sugar is everywhere. So what do we do? And how can we decrease our consumption to improve our health? So the first thing that we can do is just know what's in our food. And how we can do this is really by like reading the label, turning things over, understanding what makes up the food that we're putting in our body. The nutrition facts can make it super, super easy. So we're going to go over that in a minute on how to read a nutrition label. But really, when you grab a product, especially if it's labeled as something as low fat or healthy, turn it over. You want to turn over every product and really look at the nutrition label, because that's where we're going to find out truly what's in there. And once you start looking, you're going to be really surprised. I know a lot of people don't think to look at ketchup. Ketchup has sugar in it. Some of these things we're just not even thinking has sugar in it, and we're adding it to our daily thing and not even paying attention. So let's look at a nutrition label and how we read this. So you want to start, this is a good visual, start with the serving information at the top. So we're turning things over, we're looking at how this is labeled. So first you want to look at that serving information. So this product, for example, says 8 servings per container. I know this can get a little bit tricky, and I don't know if it's actually passed yet, but they were trying to pass that things that are single served option, like if you were to take a Fairlife protein shake, for example, that you can't label what looks like a single serve beverage as 2 servings, because people aren't naturally going to pause halfway through and put it away and save it for tomorrow. They're going to drink the whole thing because it looks and feels like a single serve item. So really turn things over, look at what the actual serving size is, how much they're portioning out for this. Because if you, for example, are getting a row of cookies and their serving size is 3 cookies, and you're not thinking about that, you're just going what feels natural, and you're eating 6. We're double what's on there. So just kind of paying attention to that aspect. Give me 1 second. So secondly, you want to look at the calories. So these are the calories per serving, and just be mindful of these. And then we want to go down to these nutrients. And what specifically with tonight's talk we're looking at is those total carbohydrates, that dietary fiber, and that total sugar. And that total sugar is going to tell you about that added sugar too. So what they're actually putting into these things, what added sugar they're putting in, that's not naturally there. So just looking for that added that added amount is really, really important. You can see here includes 23 grams of added sugar for 110 calories. So you're almost maxing out your sugar intake for a sliver of your amount of calories per day. There's other things on here. I always really like to look at the fiber amount. And a good guide, you can see over where it says number 4, quick guide to percent daily value. 5% or less is low, which can be good or bad. If it's low sugar, that's good. If there's certain amounts that we're looking for, low cholesterol. If it's 20% or more, that's high, and that could be good in like our protein amount or our fiber amount. Those are good numbers to have higher intakes of. Now, going down, you can see on the label, so we have this section where it's all of this, and then underneath it typically is our ingredient list. And this is the other thing that you want to familiarize yourself with. So to search further, you bring your eyes down to the ingredient list, and there's an estimated now to be about 60 different names for sugar. So really kind of be mindful of things. You can see corn syrup, sugar, there's more corn syrup, there's fructose syrup in here. So really kind of being mindful of these. For you want to look at things that have like the ose at the end of those, such as the fructose, or have that syrup name in it. Those are going to be key things to call out that it's added sugar. Something that I like to just point out here, if it's a ton of ingredients, probably not something that we want to put into our body on a regular basis. And then if you can't pronounce the words, maybe be a little bit mindful. Some of these things are going to be like vitamin names, but for the majority of it, if we can't pronounce these simply, probably not the best thing to put into our body. So now we know how much sugar we need. We know that it's hidden everywhere. We know the cause and what damage it can do. So how do we actually enjoy these things mindfully? If you've ever worked with me, you know I'm a no food is off limits dietitian. We should be able to enjoy a cookie. We should be able to enjoy things. But how do we do this mindfully? How do we make sure our diet is whole and mostly nutrient dense? And how do we not let these cravings take over? So let's talk about some tips with that. So the first one's using sugar alternatives. So there's so many different names for sugar. And we've discussed some of the marketing and healthy alternatives, but a lot of people think of like, they'll say, oh, honey, maple syrup, agave, these are more natural forms. And they are natural compared to like high fructose corn syrup, but we still need to be mindful of the amount that we're using. You're still going to break down into sugar. So adding in maple syrup versus cane sugar, it still breaks down to sugar. So it's just something to be mindful of. There are different sugar alcohols and different alternatives like stevia, monk fruit, that kind of stuff, and we can have a whole nother discussion on those. But if you want to be mindful of just trying to reduce that added sugar, some things that you can do as like hacks are adding cinnamon. Cinnamon actually hits the same taste buds without adding any grams of sugar. So you can add them to your oatmeal, add it to your muffins, even add it to your coffee. And that can really help mask that need for sugar without any added cost. Unsweetened shredded coconut is a great way to add energy ball, like to your energy balls that you're making, or sprinkle in your oatmeal. And it actually adds a little bit of fat too and texture. So it might help you with that added fat. It might help you keep you satisfied for a little bit longer. You can also add like fruit puree. I've had a sick baby all week, so my brain's a little bit mushy. But fruit puree is great for baking. You can add it into like you can make banana pancakes, oat pancakes. You can add applesauce in replacement for a lot of breads and pastries. So great way to get some added nutrition in there with less added sugar. Now, tip number 2 is never eat carbs alone. So when we eat meals and snacks that aren't balanced with protein, carbs, and fats, we're more likely to spike up that blood sugar. When we pair our protein with fat and carbs, or so we pair our carbs with protein and fat, we're going to feel fuller for longer. It's going to help slow the digestion and help improve our blood sugar management. Instead of eating like just that one packet of oatmeal, look for a lower sugar option. Turn that package around, and then consider adding like some eggs on the side, or throwing in some peanut butter. Make sure that there's no added sugar in the peanut butter. Or add in some nuts. Have some Greek yogurt with it. That's plain. These are ways that we can bump up the volume and bump up the protein and healthy fats to help keep us satisfied and have our energy levels stabilized. I know with me, and a practice that we do with my kids is, if we're going to have a cookie or a cake or a treat or something like that at dinner time, we don't have it as dessert. We have it with dinner. That way it's just part of the meal. We're not making this big deal about it. We're not bringing attention to it. It's just part of the meal, and we're just enjoying it. And that really helps, one, balance out our sugar, but also helps with our cravings. We're fuller. We're not diving in. It's like, oh, it's just a cookie. It's part of our meal. And I notice one of my kids will eat the entire cookie and he'll eat it first. And then the other will take a bite, kind of move on, and sometimes not even finish it. And it's all about just allowing it and not making it this priority or this big deal, and then balancing it out with that protein, those vegetables, all of those good things. So finally, mindfully portion. We are all allowed to incorporate our favorite sweets and treats, and we should be able to do so. We just want to be mindful. So same thing, adding that one cookie. So find that balanced mindset that allows you to enjoy the cookie, but then move on instead of eating the whole sleeve. And this takes time. This is not an easy thing to just accomplish right away. It's a habit that needs to be built on and takes a lot of practice. So a few things that you can do to help keep you mindful. One, eat balanced meals throughout the day. This is going to keep you from getting too hungry, where then you go into almost that binge, hangry mode. I notice this a lot during holidays, as we try to not eat because we know we're going to overindulge at dinner. Instead, eat a balanced breakfast, eat a balanced lunch, and then mindfully indulge in some of those foods. Portion the snack out instead of eating it right out of the container. So instead of just grabbing the bag of chips, make yourself a bowl. Portion it out so you know, okay, this is my one serving, and then I'm going to actually enjoy it. Take your time. This is a big thing that a lot of people struggle with, is actually slowing down to eat the food rather than mindlessly eating it. So a lot of us will eat in front of the TV, and then it's like, oh shoot, I ate the whole bag of chips. Slow down. Sit down, enjoy that food. A lot of times we'll realize, oh, I don't even want it. I'm just stressed in the moment and I'm going for this. Then after consuming a treat, go for a light walk. Go move your body. Your blood sugar will actually respond in a positive way when we do this. Oh, we have one person joining. Let me add them in really quick. So there's actually a study. I think we got a new message. No starving allowed. I love that. Yeah, we don't want that. We want to just mindfully eat. So, in a recent study, scientists looked at how taking short breaks from sitting could affect blood sugar levels after eating, called your post-meal glycemic response. So they compared people who sat without moving to people who took short breaks, either walking or squatting throughout the day. The people in the study were all overweight and sat for over 8 hours straight, kind of like a typical workday that a lot of us experience. So the result, taking just 3-minute breaks every 45 minutes made a big difference. People who took short breaks to walk or squat, one squat every 5 seconds for 3 minutes, or 36 squats in a row, had much better blood sugar control, up to 21% levels after eating. So they had a decrease in 21% of their blood sugars after eating. And they didn't do anything except for this simple movement. So adding just a little bit of mindful movement can do so much for us, in terms of even just like how our body's responding to sugar. So at this point, I hope you've learned a few things about sneaky sugar, how to stay more mindful, how to find it. And then we want to talk about how to just build that whole foundation. So we've talked about these in the past, but our core principles. So adding more whole foods into our diet. Think about what we're adding, not taking away. So add more vegetables, add more fruits, add more good quality grains. These are going to help keep us full, help keep us satisfied. If you struggle with counting and doing all this, use the plate method, aiming for about half your plate as those non-starchy vegetables, a fourth of your plate as lean protein, and a fourth of your plate as starchy carbs. You can put your fruit in that section, and then being mindful with our fats on top. Then we want to focus on that balance that we talked about. So every snack, every meal, focus on balance, trying to get proteins, carbs, and fats. These are going to keep us full for longer and keep our blood sugars happy. And then limit the amount of ultra processed sugar. So remember, we don't want we want to say about that 6 tables or teaspoons for women, 9 for men, which is that 25 and that 36 grams of added sugar per day. So when we are consuming these things, just be mindful, be aware, understand what's going on. Sometimes if we're feeling really stressed and we're going for food, take a breath. Think about, okay, is this going to actually make me feel good? Because a lot of times it adds to the stress or it adds to the guilt. Sometimes redirecting that can really be beneficial. It's like, okay, I'm really stressed. I want some cookies. Pause. It's probably not going to make me feel better. Let me go take a walk. Let me go move my body. Let me go take some deep breaths. Let me go distract myself. See if that's going to actually help improve the situation versus make me feel guilty later on. And now I want to get into just a few facts with this is like fueling around workouts. A lot of people, a lot of athlete-driven products have sugar in them. Liquid IV, not all their products, but some of their main products have added sugar. Gatorades, things like that. Really, really important to be mindful of. But fueling around your workouts is super, super important. So being mindful, our goal with our workouts are to gain muscle, lose fat, increase energy. That's kind of why we do it. De-stress, there's lots of these reasons. We want to make sure we're eating to fuel our body so that it can perform. So aiming to have healthy carbs and protein before your workout is really, really important. Think about if you don't put gas in your car, you wouldn't expect it to move. So you don't want your body to run on empty. This doesn't have to be anything big. You start out small, but making sure there's some fuel in your tanks when you're going. A simple thing could be like an applesauce pouch with an egg muffin. We don't have to eat anything wild, but making sure there's fuel. And then post-workout too, make sure we're recovering, balanced meals again, making sure we're getting some carbs, making sure we're getting in some protein and some healthy fats. Vegetables. A lot of I get this question a lot. I don't love vegetables. I used to not like them either. Now I love them. I crave vegetables. You can try different ways. Salads, roasting, sautéing. I make bread with this week we did banana bread with zucchini and carrots so that it's kind of hidden in there. There's so many different ways that we can get it up. You can chop it up finely. If you really like macaroni and cheese, or your kids like macaroni and cheese, you can blend in vegetables, mix it into the cheese, like butternut squash, cauliflower, carrots. Put that in the cheese sauce and mix it all over. There's so many different ways that we could do it. There's ways that we can add it crunchy, raw. I mean, there's so many things. So if you don't feel like you don't like vegetables, let's try some other options as to how we can cook it or prepare it or eat it to see if we can get some added in. And remember, vegetables are like non-starchy vegetables add volume. They keep you full. And they don't count a lot in terms of calories. So they're a great way to help balance out the satiety without overdoing it. I've never met someone who's going to overeat vegetables, like the non-starchy vegetables, and gain weight from them. It's impossible. Now, a lot of you might be feeling, oh, this is overwhelming. Sugar's everywhere in my diet. I don't know how to do this. Where do I start? One habit at a time. Do not try to be perfect. Start with one thing. If that's breakfast, trying to reduce sugar in. If it's dinner, wherever it might be. If it's buying different granola bars, starting to just look at the nutrition label. Start with one habit and build. We don't need to be perfect. We want to be sustainable. So really kind of taking that one habit at a time approach will lead us to those long-term habits. If we try to just cut everything out, we might be successful for a short time, but typically these things start to creep in because they're habits. So slowly starting to build those. And if you struggle, we're here to help. We have a whole team that's guided to help. We have different ways of helping you to really keep you on track, teach you different ways that's going to work specifically for you, because it is not a one size fits all. We have to look at you, your lifestyle, and everything to really help you get this into your life and be sustainable with it. Um, so I'll open it up to some questions for you guys, but I hope you enjoyed our talk about sugar and sweets, and I hope you find it helpful. And I can't wait till our next talk. But if you guys have any questions on sugar or sneaky things, let me know. Sugar-free creamer and coffee is okay. Yeah, if you tolerate it. So that's the big thing, is there are these sugar alcohols, stevia, monk fruit, that kind of stuff. Those are going to be sugar-free, and the way that the sugar alcohols in those is because of the way that they digest. So they it's almost it digests in a different part. It's a whole different conversation that we can have, but they're not going to count towards your sugar goals. So using something like that, if you like it and you digest it well, can be a great hack. I noticed that sometimes when we use these, like stevias, monk fruits, sucralose, um, allulose, different things, some of them come with bloating because of how it's actually digested and broken down. So it's something to be mindful of. See how you tolerate. I know erythritol, which is a sugar alcohol, I don't tolerate. I get bloated immediately. Allulose is typically going to be low in sugar but high in fiber. And again, it can cause a lot of bloating and discomfort. So things to just be mindful of. I tend to like monk fruit. Personally, if I'm going to have something that's sugar-free, to help with that. There's xylitol, there's a couple different things. So you got to find what works for you, but still just being mindful of what we're doing with it. Trying to incorporate more whole foods. Type 3 diabetes from sugar substitutes, true or false? I haven't heard that. Um, I know there's a lot of things out there. There's research that it's what I'll say on this is there's levels that are called GRAS, so generally recognized as safe with any product, with any chemical. And these are things that if we consume a certain amount that up to those GRAS standards, it's safe for our body. Now, if we're consuming product A that meets the GRAS limit, product B that meets that same limit, product C all throughout the day, plus some, we're starting to overconsume these things. So it's really just being mindful. The biggest thing, incorporate more whole foods. We want to stay away from as much processed things. So when we're buying a lot of things that are going to have a bunch of these sugar substitutes in them, those are telling me they're processed foods. So if we can reduce those, we're going to be doing a lot better in general. And typically, if something's going to have a sugar substitute, it's not going to keep us full for long. So it's like those 100-calorie packs. They never kept us full. It might satisfy that need for a little bit, but then 30 minutes later, we're full or we're hungry again. We want something. So it's not actually satisfying that. So instead of eating the 100-calorie pack of chocolate cookies, have a cookie that's made maybe with oats and some coconut, and you're controlling the amount of sugar in it. You can put chia seeds, you can make these really good, or energy balls, and have that with a cup of berries. Have it with a cheese stick, balance things out. We're going to feel so much more full off of that, have more balanced blood sugar, and not have these lasting effects if we're just trying to go for a sweet option to hit that craving. Even like dark chocolate, having a piece of dark chocolate is fantastic. Dates, wonderful. They are high in sugar, but if we're not eating a ton of them, they're great. They're high in fiber too. They have a lot of benefits. You just don't want to eat like a cupful of them. Something we do, we call them sneaky dates. So you take the date, you put a chocolate chip or a chocolate chunk, like dark chocolate in there, put a little bit of peanut butter. You can put some coconut on top. Eat it. It tastes like a Reese's Pieces. So if you are someone who just wants that sweet treat, that's a fantastic option. You can use dates to sweeten things too. Like if you want that caramel, you can use that. You can actually make caramel out of dates. So there's lots of things that you can do with these hacks. Sugar is still sugar, so we want to be mindful of it. But just some things to consider with it. But yeah, dates are totally fine. I use maple syrup. I use coconut sugar a lot in my cooking. So lots of different things that we can do. What other questions do we have? I think the biggest thing is just go into your fridge, go into your pantry, start turning things over and see, is there something that you just totally didn't think about that has sugar in it? I know barbecue sauce is a huge hidden sugar that we don't really think about. Ketchup, sauces, these types of things have a ton of hidden sugar in it. So just being mindful. Those cereals, they make so many good products nowadays. This is something that I love is you can go to the store and you can find amazing products that are actually clean. Sometimes they don't taste good. I know in my house, it took a while for when my parents come and visit. They're like, your peanut butter tastes different and your maple syrup tastes different. And that's because we buy the peanut butter without the added sugar and we buy the maple syrup that's just plain maple syrup. We don't buy the table syrup. Um, so just something to consider. With kids, I know kids, it's so hard. We portion things out. So when we have pancakes, we put their syrup in a little cup. So that's their portion. They're not getting any more. And then I take the syrup and I put it away. It's out of sight, out of mind. So that's your option. Just different things. Sugar-free syrups to replace sugar and dessert. So it's kind of same with that sugar-free creamer topic that we talked about. So again, is it going to keep us full? Great option if we're really trying to cut down on the sugar intake overall and we're struggling and we just need that. Fantastic options. But we don't want to rely on these like band-aids to cover things. We want to work on how we can incorporate more whole foods into our diets. What is plain maple syrup? Just maple syrup. A lot of the syrups that you'll find are actually table syrup. So they're not true maple syrup. So just looking at products. But if you're buying 100% maple syrup, it's just being mindful of different things. I'm totally fine with adding sugar-free syrups, doing sugar-free creamers. I think it can be so helpful in a lot of people overcoming their sugar addiction. But again, just looking at the whole picture. What are we trying to accomplish? Are we trying to get off these processed foods? And if that's a goal, then we need to look back and use these as tools. And then how can we add to our diet to help keep us full for longer? So do we need to keep these sugar-free options in our staples? Might be an option for you. Um, and then just how do you tolerate them? How do you like them? Does it actually help satisfy that craving too? Because that's a big one. If you make this stuff and you're like, well, now I'm eating more because I think that then we're adding calories, we're adding different things. So it's just something to discuss and keep in mind, but can be a super, super useful tool. What's the difference between raw honey and other honey? That I think just depends on the processing of it. It's not necessarily anything bad. Some honey is made from different areas. I would say if you really want to get a good quality honey, you want to look for local because that's actually going to help with your allergies too. Um, And then there's Manuka honey, which has like medicinal effects that can actually help with wound healing and different things. But honey, if you get it local, actually is from the local pollen, and it's within, I think, 20-mile radius of your house, can actually help reduce your allergies during that season. The biggest thing I would say is just turn your products around. Really be mindful. First, just get a baseline of how much sugar are you actually consuming, and then build from there. Of course. You guys can always email me more questions if you have them. And then I will send out the meeting minutes from this as well with just some tips and tricks. But if there's something that we didn't address that you want to shoot me an email for, feel free. And I look forward to chatting with you guys on the next call. We have one more person typing.